Everyone told me to call them more. My neighbor Frank, good man, terrible advice. You want to know what happens when you keep calling people who are too busy to call you back? You start to feel like a bill they forgot to pay. I did not want to be a bill. I had spent 91 years being something real. I was not about to spend whatever time I had left being a reminder of someone's inadequacy. So I stopped calling. Not out of spite. This was something quieter. Something I should have discovered 30 years earlier. If this is your first time here, subscribe right now. This is a place where people old enough to stop being polite finally say what they actually know. Subscribe. And let me tell you about a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday. I remember because I had made soup, not from a can. Real soup. Chicken and vegetables and the kind of broth that takes all morning to get right. I had been on my feet for 3 hours. My knees were making their opinions known, but the soup was perfect. And I thought, I will call Thomas. Thomas is my youngest, lives 40 minutes away. Come for lunch, I said. I made soup. He did not answer. He texted back 3 hours later. Sorry, Dad. Crazy week. Next time. Next time. I looked at that text for a long time, the way you look at something that has gone flat, like bread left out too long. And then I turned off my phone, sat down at the kitchen table, and ate my soup alone. It was still good. I made sure to notice that. That was the day something shifted in me. I did not cry. I had cried plenty in the months before, quietly, at night, where no one could hear because there was no one to hear. I had cried for Eleanor, my wife, who left me 4 years ago on a gray November morning, so ordinary it seemed impossible that such an ordinary morning could contain something so enormous. 58 years, 2 months, and 11 days. Not that I was counting, though of course I was always counting. Eleanor used to say, Arthur, the only thing worse than being lonely is being lonely with people watching. I thought about that a great deal after she died, because I was surrounded by love. Cards from my son Michael at Christmas, calls from Thomas on my birthday, grandchildren sending photographs, and I had never felt so completely, so profoundly alone, loved and alone. You do not expect those two things to live in the same house, but they do. They are surprisingly compatible roommates. My children did not ignore me the way you would ignore a stranger. They ignored me the way people ignore things that are not urgent, the way you ignore a creaking step that is not quite broken yet. I was background noise, loved background noise, and for a while I tried to make myself smaller to fit into the corners of their lives. I stopped mentioning the steps that were giving me trouble. I stopped telling Thomas about the faucet dripping for 3 months because I did not want to be the problem again. I became very good at saying I am fine in exactly the tone that required no follow-up. Men of my generation are good at that. It is one of our least useful skills. When you make yourself small enough to avoid being a burden, you eventually disappear. Not to them. You are still their father. But you disappear to yourself. I was not going to disappear. Not at 91. Not after everything I had survived. So, Wednesday, soup. Next time. I decided to stop waiting for next time. I put the phone in the kitchen drawer. Not permanently. I am old, not reckless. But I stopped organizing my days around whether someone had called or texted or remembered I existed. I stopped measuring my unwantedness by a phone that did not ring. And I started keeping a record. A small yellow notebook. Every day, one thing I had done. Not felt. Done. Made soup. watered the African violet, the one Eleanor bought 11 years ago, that has outlived every prediction of its death. Read 6 chapters of a novel, sat in the backyard and watched a bird build something in the oak tree with a persistence I found genuinely moving. Small things, but they were mine. Evidence that I was still a person who did things, not just a person things happened to. And then one Thursday afternoon I went for a walk. The house next door had been empty for 2 years. Then one autumn a young woman moved in. Her name was Nadia, early 30s, single mother. A daughter named Clara, 4 years old, with the kind of energy that expresses itself primarily through sound. I had waved at Nadia a few times. She waved back with the exhaustion of someone waving from underwater, always carrying something, always the expression of a person managing too many things alone. I recognized that. I had worn it myself in harder years. That Thursday I walked past her house and found her sitting on the front steps looking at nothing. She just looked done, like a person who has finally put down everything they were carrying and is sitting with the strange emptiness of empty hands. I sat down next to her. She looked at me startled. I said, "You look like someone who could use 5 minutes of not being asked anything." She stared at me, and then she said, "That is the most accurate thing anyone has said to me in months." We sat together without talking. The light was going golden the way it does in September, and then she started talking. She had moved here after a divorce. Her family was far away. She was tired in the specific way that does not get better with sleep. I listened. I am good at listening. When she finished, she looked embarrassed. "I am sorry," she said. "I do not know why I told you that." "Because I sat down," I said, "and I did not ask you anything." She laughed, the surprised kind. Before you decide whether something is funny. I liked her immediately. Within 2 weeks, Clara was coming to my house after school. Not because anyone planned it. Nadia needed someone present with Clara for 1 hour. I needed someone present with me for any amount of time at all. Clara was an astonishing child. She held my hand once and examined it like a small physician, turned it over, traced the raised veins. Then she said, "It is like a map." I nearly fell out of my chair. We baked oatmeal cookies. She ate 4 before they cooled and denied eating any, which I found hilarious. We read books. She asked me why old photographs were gray, whether I had ever met anyone famous. She asked me once with complete seriousness whether I was afraid to die. And I said, "Some days, yes." And she nodded and said, "Me too sometimes." This child was 4 years old, and she already understood that the honest answer is more comfortable than the reassuring one. Nadia started coming too after work. She would drink tea and tell me about her day. I would tell her about mine. I told her about Eleanor, about how the house still had the shape of her, her chair, the coffee mug I still washed and put away even though I would never use it myself. Nadia did not say anything predictable about grief. She just said, "It sounds like you really saw each other." And I had to stop, because yes, that was exactly it. Being unseen after 58 years of being seen is its own particular kind of blindness. Thomas called 3 weeks after the soup Wednesday. He did not know anything had changed. I said I was teaching my neighbor's daughter to bake. I said I had been reading a novel. I said the African violet was doing particularly well. He said, "Wow, Dad, you sound really good." And I said, "I am really good," and I meant it. He came for lunch the following weekend, not because I had asked, not because he felt guilty, because something in my voice had shifted from a voice that was waiting to be visited into a voice that was simply, matter-of-factly living. A living person is more interesting to visit than a waiting one. We are drawn to the ones who seem not to need us, not because we are cruel, but because their fullness makes us feel we are adding to something rather than filling a hole. I am 91 years old. I have buried my wife, my parents, two of my closest friends, and a version of myself I had to let go of in order to survive what came after. I have made soup no one came to eat. I have waited by phones in kitchen drawers, and I have learned, late but not too late, that a man who is still building something is impossible to overlook for long, not because he demands to be seen, but because he is genuinely too busy to notice whether he is. My hands shake now. They used to be steady hands. They held two babies, fixed things for decades, held Eleanor's hand at the end. They still work. They just shake a little while they do it. Build something, anything, something that needs you tomorrow. And then if they come, your children, your grandchildren, the people you love who have gotten too busy, you will have something real to show them. Not your loneliness, not your need. Something you made with your shaking, remembering 91-year-old hands. That is all I have. I am not sure it is wisdom. It is just what happened to me. If this reached something in you, share it. Send it to someone whose father is sitting alone waiting for a phone that does not ring. Leave a comment below. Tell me your story. I read every single one. And if you are not yet subscribed, do it now. Because the conversations that matter most are the ones nobody is having. Take care of yourself and build something. Start tomorrow.